Hi and welcome back to HiCode tutorial. This video is about form widgets. First, some basic information on form widgets, and next how to use them. And still we will practice it with an example. Okay, first, what is form widget? A form widget can collect, check, and set combined data of its child input UI widgets. For example, input box, drop-down list, and etc. Form widget is usually used with its field. Generally speaking, we first create a form widget in the object tree, and next add some input boxes or other input widgets to the form widget. And third, to the input widgets, add form field. The form field and the input widget can be bound in a two-way manner. You can set value for the input widget, and you can get value from the input widget. The steps of using a form widget is to first build form structure, just like what we've seen in the last slide, and then get and check user input. The next three steps include databases operations, which we haven't seen yet. So in today's video, we're not going to cover them, but they are submit user data to database and output data from this database and display it. And finally, we can update databases with form widget. Next, let's go to the example and practice how to use form widget. This is the expected outcome of today. When I enter names, phone, and introduction, and hit submit, we can get the inputs in an object array. Also, the form can check if the inputs are legal. And when it is illegal, for example, in the wrong format, it will alert us with the color change of the input box. Also, the submission process will fail. Let's start with creating a new project for this video. So, a form widget, and create. First thing to do is to complete the user interface. So add a page to the stage, and in this page we will first have a title. So create a text and set its content to event registration. Our target outcome is horizontally aligned to its center, so we can go to this page and set horizontal alignment to its center. We can also give this page a padding top of maybe 20 pixels, and to move this title down a bit, give it a smaller font size and bold. Next, we will have a row of text and an input box. So for this row, of course, I will have a row, and inside this row, first a text box and second an input box. This text box will be star name, and if I want to highlight the star, as you can see it is red, I can set highlight text and input a star here. Now you can see it is highlighted. Clear this background color and set the text color to red. the font size should be smaller. And align these elements to the center of this row. So set this row vertical alignment to its center and set height to wrap. We can have horizontal alignment to the center also. And for this input box, it should be enter name. So enter name. It will need some space between the name and the box. So a margin left of 10. And last, we can clear the background color of this row and give some top margin to this row before we copy paste it for the next two parts. Because these parts look similar, so we can reuse this row we've just made. Make some changes to them. Phone, enter phone. And this one is clear the placeholder and change the width to, it seems like 275 pixels. And to align this text box to the left of the input box, we can set a width for the text box to make them the same. Why are they not aligned? This is because before we have set a margin left for this input box, so we can go delete this margin for the self-introduction box. Also, we can turn on this multi-line input for this box, and we don't need this, clear it, and just set a height for this box. Maybe we'll need a little more, 100 pixels, and some space between these two lines, so a margin for the input box. We can also set a padding for the input box so that the line wouldn't start from the very top. 5 would be enough. And last thing, a submit button. So go back to the page and add a button. The button should be first submit and smaller width, maybe 35 pixels, and this is 160, and this one should be 35. Adjust the radius to 4, and we also need a smaller font size of maybe 18, and for the background color, make it darker. Margin top, and we're done. Let's go to the preview and see the results. Okay, so we've got a problem here. These two should be in separate lines, but maybe we can go to inspect and change it to a font size, and now it looks normal. If you want it to be responsive and look good on PC screens as well, we can go back to this place and hold these two inside a column. Go to page 1 and add another column to hold these widgets. So we can drag this row inside this column, and the submit button should be at the bottom. Set this column to wrap, and the button is back. And we will need another row inside this column, and put this input box inside row 2. In this way, these two widgets won't be changed into a single row, but we'll have to align it again. So for this row, align to the center, and we can clear the backgrounds, also the column's background. And now we can go to see the effect. So now I think we've completed the user interface part. Next we are going to add the form widget. You can find it right below the V4 widget. A form widget is a container, and you'll have to use it together with other widgets. For now, only by itself, it has nothing in its property panel. So first we will give this form widget some children. We'll put all of this drag inside it. And next we will add a form field to each of those widgets that can take input. So how to add fields in a form? We will start with the first input box. First click to select it, and in the widget bar we have now very limited choices, and this one is what we are looking for, a field. Add it to the input box, and when we select it, we can see from the fields property box its field name, bind property, direction, field type, not null, and empty value. For its field name, we can set it to name. So the field name, of course, is the name of this field, and it is a key that is used for getting and setting value of this field. Next, the bind property. It means to which property of this input box should the field bind itself to. It is currently selecting for us the most logical one, because we will want to take the input value of an input box. But in fact, we can choose from a whole bunch of properties of this box, and these are basically the same as the properties shown here. Going back to the field, and by direction you can set whether you want to set value for this input box or you want to get data from it. Or you can use both or none. The default is both. And field type. This is used for something like a parity check. You can specify a type for your input, and the input will be checked if it satisfies your specification before passing on to the next step. For example, if I choose Chinese, and I must enter Chinese here. If I entered something that is not Chinese, it will not complete the submit process. You can also use custom and write your own regex here to customize a rule for yourself. And by this property, you can set it to required or optional. If you turn this on, an input here will be required. And this one is optional. You can set a default value for this field. Next, add a field to this enter phone input box. Name it phone. And we will leave the direction to both, and this field type we can select a phone. And these two inputs are actually required, so we will select this one, and this is required too. And next, for the introduction box, add a field, name it intro. This is not required, and we don't need to specify a field type for it, because I think you can enter whatever you like in your self-introduction. Now we have completed the first step, adding fields to the input widgets. and we have set properties for these fields. The next thing is to complete the event for the submit button. So go to the submit button and add an event. When it is clicked, and next we will select the form. Because the form is the parent of all of these widgets, and everything we want to submit is inside this form. And for the action, we will select get value. When get value is performed, the form widget will collect all the input value, all the fields inside it, and combine the values into an object array. And during this process, it will check if the inputs are legal. For example, if the font is in a correct font format. When it detects illegal input, it will return fail, and it will perform corresponding actions for get value failure. We can first go to the console and see what the outputs look like. For the first line, I will use result and if the submission process is successful. And the second line, I will use this form data and it will get the input from all those input boxes. Go to preview. And again, console. For name, I will enter Lily and leave this form blank. Hit submit and it says false. Name Lily intro blank. The submission failed because I haven't entered a font, but the font is actually set to required. Now when I enter something for the font and submit again, it is still false because I also set a parity check for the font so that it should be in a correct font format. Otherwise, it won't pass on the value onto the next step. Change it to a correct font format. And something for the introduction. And finally, it says true, and the submission is successful. And we get all the inputs, Lily, this phone number, and introduction. We can also use the console log to see which of the fields is illegal. Select result and illegal field. A name and a font in illegal format. Submit and inspect. And now it says false and this font is illegal. Or if I delete both inputs, and now both of them are illegal. So when they are illegal, how do I highlight these input boxes to alert the users? For the form fields, they have some special triggers. Add an event to them, and this trigger you can choose from check OK or check fail. So if it is fail, and select target, this name, enter name input box, and I will set it properties. Look for the border color, the border style, border color, and set it to red. Do the same thing for copy paste this one, and do the same for the other input box. And don't forget to change the color back to the normal color when the check is successful. Let's go to see the default color. It's this. And add an event if it is OK, and set this back to default color. Border color there. And the same for this enter name. Okay. Directly go to submit, and both input boxes turned red, and enter the name. Submit, it changed to a normal color. And both of them passed the check. So there are two steps of checks. The first one is if the input is empty, and the second one is if it is legal. Next, let's see how to customize a field type of your own. Go to the bottom and use this custom. When you click, there is another line that says custom type, and in this box you can write regular expressions. It doesn't matter if you don't know how to write one, because you can directly Google them. Regex is the short form for regular expression. You can search regex examples, and Google offers us many basic examples. For example, let's go with this ends with dog. We are currently at this introduction box. Paste your expression in the custom type property. And let's go to see the preview. Enter a name, phone, and first let's try something that doesn't end with a dog. Submit, and it is false because being a cat is illegal. And next, end with dog, and it is true. Next, let's see the set property of the form fields. Make a copy of this submit button and name it set. For the event, it will set the form's value. And this line expects input in JSON format. Let's go back to the console and print the input. For example, iris and submit. This line is the form data that we print. Select copy object and go back to the set button. Write it in the set values value. And when we preview again, now the inputs are all blank, and when I click the set, it automatically fills in these boxes. Go back to the editor and set, for example, the enter names direction property from both to only get, and try it again. Now when I click this set button, only the rest two boxes are filled. But I can still enter a name manually and submit. But what if I set this direction to none? And none means this line of input is disabled. Set, and it's not set. And when I enter a name, the console log only gets the input from the rest two, because this one is disabled. I'll change it back to both. So what Form Widget does is to arrange our inputs into an object, and this is more convenient for us to submit data into the database. And basically that is all for this video. Thank you for watching.